The street lamp hiccuped mid-buzz, slinging a razor strip of light across the wet square. In that slice, every storefront glass synchronized, showing the same three silhouettes frozen in the same impossible posture. Eyes locked on the lamp, then bleeding back to darkness as the bulb steadied. The cobbles stayed slick, but something shifted in the shine. The sudden absence of those shapes felt like a dare to look back up. The square settled into its usual shuffle. The baker's boy, already pacing his rounds, ducked under the lamp post and juggled a basket of crusty rolls with practiced ease. He waved to the grocer, who set up crates of pears along the stall's edge, the fruit still gleaming from last night's mist. Farther down, the cobbler leaned over his bench, gluing a sole while his apprentice swept errant shavings into a tin can. Every few steps, someone glanced at the cleared sky to be sure the street lamp wasn't playing another trick, then returned to the rhythm that kept the village pulsing. Scrape of hooves, clink of coin, murmur of greetings. Old Mrs. Tavish, basket of herbs in hand, paused to straighten the chalk tick marks on the bakery's board, counting loaves to be claimed by midday. A child spun a hoop beside the fountain, its wooden rim whispering over the stones, while an innkeeper wiped down the brass bell at his entrance, nodding to those already lining the door for morning tea. Nothing seemed beyond the usual murmur. Lamp steady, routine steady, the square brightening with the day's pulse. Mara pressed the phone camera flush against the brass base. The little red light winked on. The lamp fidgeted again. 3 tight pulses, too long, then a pause exactly 8 seconds from the first pulse. Eli, knuckles white around a cooling cup of tea, was already counting. "It loops," he breathed, "and that pause never wobbles." Mara nodded, fingers flying over the sticky notebook. She recorded the rhythm, flipped to earlier runs to cross-check. Every repetition slid into the same cadence. The lamp didn't rattle like a busted filament. It breathed with intent. Eli leaned in, palm hovering above the shade, and the light clicked into the same 3 and 2. When he lowered his hand, the pause stretched a fraction before the next pulse. Mara jerked her head up. "It's reacting," she whispered, even though the apartment was mostly empty. She reached across the desk for the black cloth, draped it over the lamp to dim the room, and the pattern became sharp stabs in the dark instead of a haze. Lines of light sliced through the cloth, leaving ghost arcs on the ceiling. They leaned close enough to feel the heat. A sudden thud from the hallway made Eli stiffen, and the lamp's sequence faltered. One of the long blinks truncated. Mara jerked the cloth aside, and the lights spiked, as if trying to finish and then giving up. The hallway stayed silent, and the lamp, having caught its breath, continued with the exact same rhythm. No slippage. Mara's heartbeat roared in her ears. She released the breath she hadn't realized she held and scribbled, "Stop trigger?" beside the note about the pause. "Whatever this is," Eli said, "it isn't just a flicker. It's replying to what we just did." They spent the next minute tapping out the 3-long pattern with the back of a pen, letting the lamp fill the pause. Each time Mara paused on the 2 longs, the light weighted itself, a brief intimidation of brightness, as if testing patience. A micro win. When Mara mimicked the full sequence, the lamp slowed, the pause stretching again, offering the same timing on the inhale. Small reward, but real. A willingness to mirror them, even if only rhythmically. Mara slid the pen down with a quiet chuckle and nudged the notebook toward Eli. "If we can map this cycle," she said, "we can know when to listen before it starts, not just chase it." The lamp pulsed once more. 3 quick, 2 slow, and the pause felt like a blink between sentences. Mara crouched by the lamp, notebook on her knee, pen poised, breath shallow. The familiar 3 short, 2 long flicker hit with the 8-second spacing, and she marked it before Jonas slid a small LED rig toward the base. The rig hummed, the sensor whining as it tracked the rhythm. But the light still did its thing. 3 quick sparks, 2 patient glows, always returning to deliberate staccato no matter how the rig or their hands disturbed it. Outside, the bell above the shop door rang as Hilda and 2 other residents hurried in, coats damp from drizzle. Hilda grabbed Mara's sleeve. "They're back," she hissed, jerking her chin toward the lamp. Not the whole shape, but figures, just there in the glare. Jonas nodded, flipped the recorder on, and pressed the microphone between them. The figure stretched toward the threshold, fingers brushing the doorway, then recoiled as if the wall repelled it. For a heartbeat, the light surged, a burst that left the room pale and hushed, before continuing its slow pattern. Hilda exhaled a laugh that sounded almost like a sob. "It answered me," she said, voice cracking. "It moved when I called its name. Even if I can't remember it." Jonas cut his eyes to her. "We get this on camera, Hilda. Let it see us as much as we see it." He pulled his phone from his pocket to start the live feed. The screen wobbled, haloed by the lamp's reflection. When the figure leaned in again, the light sharpened around it. The angle caught a glint of metallic thread, or just the lamp's sheen. But the shape rippled with a rhythm barely in sync with the flicker. Mara counted aloud, jaw clenched. 1, 2, 3. But the 2 longs came early, the figure snapping back like a spring pulled too hard. The tension snapped when the figure extended a hand toward Hilda's shoulder and paused before contact. Jonas leaned so close the camera trembled. Mara swore she felt static prickling her palms. "Now," she breathed. Jonas reached out, fingers trembling, and the lamp brightened, bathing the hand in white fire. The figure's form undulated, slim shoulders flattening, and for the first time the outline resembled a child's silhouette. Then the light flickered into the familiar pattern, the figure dissolving into glare. And Hilda gripped Mara's arm, as if the release hurt. The rain outside stopped, leaving only the lamps clicking, the aftermath humming in their ears. Jonas hit stop and held his phone up, eyes bright. "We got it," he said. Hilda nodded, trembling with something like relief. Mara let the notebook lie open on the floor, the page already heavy with the new entry. The town's whispers now came with proof. Not certainty, but a hand pressed against the glass of the unknown. That proof thrummed in the quiet after the glow. A small bright pulse in darkness. Ina arrived before dawn, the cold settling under the porch beams like held breath. She carried a crate of river rocks, each wrapped in linen and scored with a name. Grandmothers, half-forgotten neighbors, children memorialized as lost to the deep. She set the crate by the lamp's case, hands moving fast, fingers trembling as if the walls cracked beneath her touch. "We keep their eyes on the lantern," she said, voice snapping like brittle rope. "Fear is what they remember. They watch when you poke at it, and they weigh whether you've buried your fear or draped it over their coffin." No one interrupted. The air around the lamp thickened, matching the lamp's steady 3 short, 2 long rhythm. Mara crouched, palms hovering over the glass, steadying her spectrophotometer. Jonas half turned toward the hallway, camera balanced on his shoulder, capturing Ina's movements. Tess, whose brother vanished in the sinkhole 3 winters back, shifted from foot to foot, tugging her jacket sleeves over her hands. "They say my father shouted when the last tremor rattled the lantern," she murmured, louder than she meant to. "They say he begged them not to drag the hill into the dark again." Ina offered a crooked smile. "Then let's feed them something they can chew on." She tossed one of the rock bundles onto the lamp's base. The glow flared, an extra pulse inserted between the regular cycle, and the air hummed with a faint, wet metallic tone. Jonas adjusted the exposure, whispering, "That's a new spike. You just modified its output without touching the glass." Ina's knuckles whitened. "They feel the promise of a buried fear, Mara." The watchers took a deep breath. Mara slid a hand over the casing and pressed gently. "We're not poking ghosts," she said, not looking up. "We're mapping the thing they and Tess describe." The light stuttered, responding to the pressure as if it had a spine. Tess stepped forward so fast, her boots scraped the wood. "If it knows my dad," she said, voice raw, "then maybe it knows him better than we do." A boom from the hallway, old pipes collapsing, shook the floor, and the lamp's pattern faltered for an instant, then snapped back. The lights dimmed to a reddish glow, as if the lamp drew every stray current toward itself. Ina leaned toward Tess, pressing a finger to her temple. "Tell them how to keep the watchers calm," she ordered, eyes darting to the ceiling where moonlight pooled like spilled milk. Tess swallowed. "We bury," she began, swallowing again, "the dolls we made when they took him. We bury them on the hill where the tree still leans in fear." She lifted a small pouch from her jacket, a handful of dried sage, a ribbon, and a carved cedar tooth, and laid it beside the lamp, palm resting on the glass. "You watch us. We are not afraid of what we hide anymore." The lamp shifted. The rhythm morphed into a slow, deliberate march. Ina grabbed Tess's wrist with quick strength, her grip warning and comfort alike. "Release it," she whispered to the lamp while releasing Tess. The light pulsed once, twice, and a vaporous outline coalesced at the far edge. Featureless, but distinctly human, like an ash trace of a face. It leaned toward Ina, and Ina bowed, forehead almost brushing the case. "We do not let the hill forget the watchers," she said, reverent. Jonas exhaled through his nose in a steady breath, and the vapor figure flared brighter before fading back into the light's core. The rhythm reverted to steady 3 short 2 long, loyal as ever. Mara looked at the recorder and the crate of stones. They're not just reactionary. They're selective. Ina gathered Tess closer, fingers clenching the girl's shoulder. "You can't just walk out," she said to the group. "With the lamp seen only as a tool, it watches the burying too. Keep the watchers fed, keep the fears wrapped, and they'll keep watching. Ignore that, and the hill remembers you forgot." Tess nodded, fear and resolve flickering in her expression like the lamp's pulses. She exhaled, suddenly lighter, as if naming the fear made it manageable. Ina carried the crate out, boots thudding down the hall. Mara kept her palm over the glass, fingers vibrating with the lamp's calming rhythm. Jonas lowered his camera with a satisfied creak. The room exhaled with them. The lamp settled back into its watch, glow steady once more. Nell, the librarian, stepped in with a ledger from the folk council, marks on the rituals still sharp with ink. "We're not burying fear tonight," she declared. "We're charting it before the watchers get greedy." Mara turned, setting her toolkit aside, and nodded. The night had shifted the context. Fear and watchers now wrapped together, no longer abstract but tangible politics to manage. They carried the knowledge forward, heavy, necessary, true. The lamp's pulse thudded against their ribs as they left the room. But the glow stayed behind, steady. Jonas yanked the door open and dragged the hand truck through the narrow entry hall, boots clattering the tiles. The lamp's glow warped across the ceiling, 3 short flickers into 2 long, steady, patient. Mara was already in front of it, jaw clenched, palm hovering inches away. Tess followed with a wrapped bundle, and Hilda stood a step back, eyes darting between the lampshade and the hallway, where silhouettes had been coalescing. The air felt thick, watched all at once. The lamp shivered, then pulsed a fifth flash as Jonas shoved the camera into place. He tightened screws with one hand while the other held the lens steady. The ghost feed streamed, image sharp despite the glow. "They're all lining up," he rasped a breath. Same shadows, same place, not one-off tricks. The monitors showed two shades merging along the beam, an elongated figure unspooling, fingers reaching toward the doorway. As the silhouettes bent toward the light, Mara slammed her palm down on the base, hard enough for the wood to creak. The lamp protested with a hiccup, an extra long beat, and every silhouette paused, shoulders tensing. "You felt that?" Tess whispered, clutching her bundle. Her hands shook as she peeled back the cloth to reveal a stone carved with her mother's name. "I buried this in the hillside when I was 10. You promised it would calm," she began. But the silhouette nearest her lunged forward, form sharpening, eyes like smudged charcoal anchored to the glowing glass. Hilda stepped between Tess and the lamp, shoving Tess toward Jonas. "Don't let it take any more of you. Not tonight. Not here." The silhouette hesitated, and the lamp stuttered into a doubled rhythm, like a heartbeat racing. A third figure emerged on the other side. Taller and twisted, fingers twitching toward Hilda's stance as if measuring resistance. Jonas flicked the switch to the second camera, flipping on infrared, illuminating a second pair of outlines. Mirrored movement across the room. The shapes were simultaneous. Everyone saw that same curve of shoulder, that same slow breathe. The hall was no longer merely a hall, but a corridor shared with them. Hilda shoved the stone forward, letting Tess guide it toward the lamp's rim. The moment the talisman touched the frosted glass, the light spiked and then collapsed into dull amber. The silhouettes leaned in, one leaning over the stone, background noise echoing in the walls. Mara dragged her fingertips along the edge, steering the glow into a calm, regular beat. The tall figure bent lower, its shadow nearly touching Tess's shoes, but it stopped short when the lamp steadied again, as if that rhythm drew a line it dared not cross. Silence broke with Tess's ragged exhale. "That's enough." The lamp flared once, long and unbroken, then returned to its signature pattern. Jonas shot Mara a look, sweat on his brow, but a grin creased his face. "They respond to each of us the same way," he said, voice sharp. "They're watching together." Hilda gathered the talisman from the lamp and slipped it back into Tess's waiting hands. The intense glow softened, the silhouettes lingered, stirring like smoke, then retreated into corners as the rhythm slowed. Tess tucked the stone under her collarbone and whispered a crooked thanks. Not to them, but to the lamp itself. The air thinned. The figures were still there, but they hovered apart. Patient, not dissolving. Small payoff. Jonas replayed the moment. The recorded silhouettes matched what they saw live. That proved it. To him, Mara, Hilda, Tess. The hallway wasn't safe yet, but the watchers were witnesses shared by all. Proof of convergence. And while the lamp's light hummed steady again, Jonas kept the camera aimed at the shadows. "We keep an eye on them," he said, voice lower. "We don't invite them in. Not that we can." The silhouettes leaned toward the darkened corners as soon as the talisman was tucked away, but they didn't vanish. They lingered. They watched. They were not benevolent. The lamp's rhythm kept beating, and the watchers kept waiting. Jonas's breath slammed into the cold air as he tightened the last strap on the tripod. The lamp's burnished glass pulsed in tempo with the 3 short, 2 long rhythm, but this time The light bent toward him, puddling like oil at his fingertips. He jerked back when the glow expanded into a cluster of silver camera lenses. Tiny versions of his recorder, all cracked, all still. They hovered inches from his face, each reflecting a corridor he had failed to guard. "I can't lose the footage," he spat, fingers clenching around the tripod leg. His hand trembled when the lenses twisted toward Mara. She stepped in, palm up, offering the dried lavender rope from the talisman rack. The lamp slurped the light in, and the lenses dissolved, just for a heartbeat, into a fog smelling of burnt paper. Hilda slid forward with the sealed letter from her sister's attic. The lamp shuddered as her bare arms passed through the glow, and the fog reappeared as a silhouette of a tiny girl running across an abandoned yard, shoes gone, arms reaching for a porch that wasn't there anymore. Hilda forced her fingers steady, pushing the envelope toward the base. "You're still here," she barked at the lamp, voice sharp enough to split the rhythm. The girl's outline leaned close, breath whispering cold across Hilda's knuckles. The glow swelled into a sudden flare so bright everyone flinched. The lampshade vibrated like a drum skin, and the rhythm collapsed into a storm of quivering short pulses. Hilda dragged her shoulders back, holding the letter like a shield. The flare eased when Tess dashed up, slamming the heirloom pendant at the lamp's foot. Tess didn't wait for permission. She shouted, "Name it!" And the others echoed, teeth gritted. Jonas choked, "Failure." Hilda yelled, "Loss." Mara's voice bounced from the rafters with, "Erasure." The lamp hissed, recoiling, names ricocheting in the glow, and the rhythm hiccuped into a new pattern. 2 quick bursts, one long, one long. The light cooled, offering a brief slide of dampened blue over their faces. Each person watched the lamp bend toward them, the lull lifting just enough to let them inhale. Ina grabbed Mara's elbow and forced her to lean in. Mara pressed the recorder against the stand, whispering, "Not silence." The flame shivered as if listening. When Mara's dread of being unremembered flared, an empty stage with no applause, the lamp took the shape of a single spotlight, then dissolved into a cascade of actual applause layered beneath a soft grind. The glow dimmed, and the rhythm steadied. It still pulsed, still mirrored them, but each flicker now bore the trace of their voice. For a moment, the silhouettes withdrew from the edges, and the light softened into a pool barely brighter than dusk. Jonas finally relaxed enough to nod. He didn't say the town could ignore it. But the lamp now hummed a low, matched note to their shared dread, no longer just a distant warning. The shapes tightened with every named fear, then pulled back when those fears were called aloud, proving again that ignoring it wouldn't work. Hilda dropped the letter against her calf, breathing through a trembling smile. The lamp returned to its steady pulse, still mirroring them. Still an inescapable mirror. But for a breath, they felt a reward. Their terrors had acknowledged them, and they had answered. The dining hall smelled of dust and oil, the lamp's glow a steady pinprick at the far end of the table. Everyone had hands busy. Jonas adjusting the tripod, Ina pressing her palm flat to the tabletop. Mara sorting scraps of cloth still brought as offerings. Hilda set down a shallow bowl of river stones, each engraved with a fear whispered the night before. The lamp blinked once in response, its rhythm humming through the room before the silhouettes reappeared, hovering beyond the glare. "Keep them steady," Mara said without looking up, laying a waxed ribbon along the lamp's base. The ribbon clicked against the metal. The watchers shifted, stretching thin arms of light toward the color. Jonas leaned in, balancing the recorder on the bowl's rim, and the light snapped a notch brighter, a ghostly outline scraping the edge of the doorway. It didn't recede. "They don't leave," he said sharply. "They might respond differently, but they're still here." always. Ina slid one of the river stones toward the light, the engraved word trembling under her thumb. Void. The lamp answered with a shudder, the silhouettes jerking as if prodded. Suddenly the room warped, the air pressed in. Hilda slammed her palm onto the table to steady herself and yelled, "Back!" The watchers leaned forward, breathing fog into the doorway, and Jonas jerked, nearly knocking the recorder over. He lunged for the cord, one hand slipping it free from the socket. The light flared white, the watcher's edges pulsing so close to the bulb the glass spiderwebbed. "You can't cut them loose," Ina hissed, grabbing his wrist. The cord came out with a spark, but the silhouette stayed, still dancing around the dark rim. The lamp kept its rhythm, unchanged, witnesses waiting. Jonas pushed the plug back in with shaking fingers. The glow returned, softer, but the watchers pressed cold onto the backs of their necks. Mara leaned over the lamp, touching the glass with both fingertips. "Object name," she whispered, laying her forehead to the rim. "Shadows that never leave." The pulse softened for a beat, the watchers thinning as the glow dimmed to bruise purple. Every head bowed, breathing hard. The flickers shrank, but no silhouette vanished. Jonas lifted the recorder with both hands. "They're not moving on, but they settle if we keep giving them pieces," he said quietly. Hilda nodded, guiding Ina's stone back toward the lamp. "We'll log their hours," she announced. "Write down when they sharpen, what we hand them, how tight their hold is. Keep showing up to keep them stable." The watchers swam back into focus, arms still outstretched, and Mara let out a breath, the air shaking as if they all exhaled together. The lamp flickered into its steady, 3 short, 2 long, silhouettes swirling forever in the peripheral glow. They didn't waver, but for now the group's rituals held the line. The watchers remained, tethered to the lamp, neither prank nor phantom that vanished, a truth they had learned to accept. Hilda lifted her stone, touching the engraved word to the glass a final time before setting it aside. "Not gone," she said, simply stating. They all nodded, the room humming with the knowledge that peace meant always working beside the watchers, never forgetting them. Jonas set the recorder down, the red light reflecting the lamp's pulse. "Tomorrow we log the rhythm at dawn," he added, glancing at the shimmering forms. A small release settled between them. Steady work, steady acknowledgement. The lamp never fully let go. But in that tethered space, they had a plan, and for a moment, that was enough. The corridor breathed with a hush that could have been the town's exhale. The lamp waited at the heart, its glass a still pool that no longer pretended to be only light. Hilda's hands rested on the plaster, Ina's talisman warmed beneath her fingers, and Tess spoke the name she cannot forget, a simple syllable cracking the air like a dropped stone. The glow bowed, just for a breath, away from the silhouettes gathering in its glare, and in that slackening, the watchers became a mirror. Each shimmer showed one of them standing before it, fierce, trembling, unhidden. Jonas stood beside the logbook, pages swollen with rhythms that kept time with their fear, and the lamp caught his reflection, their reflections, in the same trembling face. No one reached for the switch. No one promised this could be reversed. It hummed without asking, short pulses folding into long, and they felt the steady weight of shared exposure. A handful of earth, a fear-laden token, a whispered name, and the light answered. Not with promises, but with acknowledgement. The watchers leaned in, not to punish, but to keep watch. Around the lamp the silhouettes gathered, patient and bound, and the town finally recognized that what it feared had become what it needed. a permanent mirror that keeps their vulnerabilities together, unblinking, unerasable.